never backed away from the hardest challenges because we're committed to a better, more equitable world. This year is no exception. Staying away from people and places we love in order to keep them safe. And despite the challenges, your generosity continued. Your donations provided more than $7 million to fund coronavirus relief projects in communities worldwide. And thanks to you, citizens of Kigali, Rwanda have their first public library. Women in rural Costa Rica are enriching their communities through social entrepreneurship. At-risk kids in Puerto Rico have an artistic outlet to heal their emotional traumas. Rotary and its partners have reduced 99.9% of polio cases worldwide. Thanks to you, the Rotary Foundation raised $408 million last year. So together, we can keep doing good in the world. Donors who take action help create lasting change. Our work isn't possible without you.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the webinar today, which is entitled Our Foundation, Our Future. I'm Roger Champion, Regional Rotary Foundation Coordinator for Rotary Zone 34. We will have our opening presentation tonight by our Rotary Foundation trustee, Brenda Cressy. We will then hear two interviews and stories of service that have grown into legacy of giving. We feel that you will truly be inspired by the good that Rotarians are doing in the world. Let's start with a couple of housekeeping comments. If you would, please look on your taskbar at the bottom of the screen under interpretation and select your language. You'll select either English or French. If everybody will go on and do that, we'll appreciate it. Please note this session is being recorded. You've all been muted, and we request you stay on mute to ensure no background noises interfere with the presentation. Please make sure you're in speaker view for the best experience during the webinar. There'll be an opportunity for 5 minutes of questions at the end of each presentation. We'll have 3 presentations, so you'll have 5 minutes after each one of those. Please note at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat box and a Q&A box. Use the chat box for general comments, but please put all questions for our speakers in the Q&A box only. That will be extremely helpful and will keep the Q&A period moving smoothly. It's likely that we'll have more questions than we have time, so please understand that as we try to get to as many questions as possible. Next, I'd like to introduce Rotary Foundation trustee Brenda Cressy. Brenda joined Rotary in 1989 and is currently a member of the Rotary Club, South Portland, Cape Elizabeth, Maine. She is the retired CEO of Office Support Systems, a telecommunication business in Maine. Brenda served in key roles for Rotary International, and the Rotary Foundation is currently serving a 4-year term as trustee from the period 2017 through 2021. She was also named the first woman foundation chair for 2018 through 2019. Most of Brenda's assignments have been focused on fund development for the Rotary Foundation, specifically in the areas of peace and polio eradication. However, she shares the importance of supporting the annual fund, endowments, and major gifts. Brenda has seen and experienced firsthand how gifts to the Rotary Foundation greatly impact the lives of others and how these gifts will someday bring peace and understanding around the world. She and her husband Dick are members of the prestigious Arch Clump Society, the Legacy Society, and they have established the Brenda and Richard Cressy Endowment for Peace, which supports peace certificate fellowships. Brenda is the recipient of the Rotary International Service Above Self Award, the Rotary Foundation Citation for Meritorious Service, and the Rotary Foundation's highest recognition, the Distinguished Service Award. Brenda currently resides in Wells, Maine with her husband, Richard. I'd like to now turn the program over to Brenda.
Oh, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Roger, for this very special opportunity to share in this evening's exciting program and sharing the spotlight with two amazing presenters, Grace and Mike. To be sure, both have powerful and life-changing stories. Friends, I'm so delighted to be with all of you today and to share my thoughts on Rotary's Road to Peace, which has become such an amazing journey for all Rotarians. Has it not? Especially through our 6 areas of focus. Indeed, creating peace in today's world is an ambitious goal, but it's a goal put into action by Rotary. So this evening, I'll share more about our Peace Centers, our Partners in Peace, and how our Peace Fellows are funded. So today, in the depths of this pandemic, I think we can all agree that we've witnessed the best and the worst of humanity. The surge in regional and local conflicts around the world has truly shown the need over and over again to have professional peace builders serve as agents of peace around the globe. You may know that Rotary is fortunate now to have 7 peace centers, with the newest in Uganda. A Peace Fellow Certificate program is now available at the Makerere University. Makerere is in its first year, serving 20 Rotary scholars who have been fully funded for a 2-year certificate program. This is a rigorous program of study and applied field experience in areas related to peace and conflict resolution. But like the Rotary Foundation grants, funding and project types is carried out by Rotarians and Rotaractors, as does our peace program. It too relies on Rotarians to help identify potential candidates, with a goal of selecting approximately 50 master's degree fellows and 50 professional development certificate fellows each year. We are so fortunate to have amazing partners in the road to peace. You may know that Rotary has a 70-year collaboration with the UN. This, along with ongoing Rotary Peace Symposiums throughout the world, all further our cause for peace to do. And our newest partners are, of course, the Institute for Economics and Peace, dedicated to measuring and reporting the economic value of peace. It offers educational and community-based programs to increase stability in the communities. And clubs and the Institute can actually work together to create a peace academy. And there's also an online training program with interactive tools and webinars about the new peace building methods and underlying causes of conflict. Clubs who have reached out to utilize their many resources are participating in positive peace workshops, which bring together diverse groups of community leaders and peace builders to discuss projects on conflict resolution. Another incredible partner you should be aware of is Mediators Beyond Borders International, or MBBI, which brings mediation and peace skills to communities around the world. MBBI works to improve the community's capacity to heal after conflict, reconcile differences, and prevent issues from escalating. Both these partners especially have been very impactful during this pandemic. By working with MBBI, Rotary members can become trained peace conversation facilitators. They can receive assistance with conducting community assessments, planning and implementing projects, tap into peace resources and a network of global peace experts, and get involved with MBBI's other programs. I would also like to share my role as a trustee of the foundation and a little bit of why my husband and I have made the decision to personally support Rotary's peace efforts. As a Rotarian, I personally find that all roads lead to peace, especially when I think about Rotary's 6 areas of focus, soon to be 7 when we add the environment next year. And also as a trustee, I have personally witnessed, as Roger mentioned, many projects carried out by Rotarians around the world that has significantly changed lives. Water projects, disease and prevention, maternal and child health, community and economic development, and basic education and literacy. I'm always amazed by the thought and effort that is put into play with carrying out any one of these projects, but not surprised at all. Rotarians have that can-do attitude, and I'm not sure why, but as members of this great organization and having the support of the Rotary Foundation, we feel empowered to change the world whenever we can. And Rotarians, we do it well, and we do it every single day. Rotary does have a long history and commitment to peace. Rotary and its members are mediators, educators, advocates, practitioners of peace, and all this builds the optimal conditions for peaceful societies. So this evening, in this short time I have with you, I would like to ask you, what was your act of peace today? Think about that for a second, and I ask you to please share that answer in the chat box for everyone to see right now. Perhaps your act of peace may inspire others to give this more thought. Over the years, I had the pleasure of meeting many Rotarians, friends of Rotary, and amazing, generous donors around the world. And many have one thing in common. They realize that Rotary, its foundation, and the peace programs are really helping us to realize a more peaceful world. And when I meet with these people, I can see it in their eyes and hear how when they talk about our amazing Peace Fellows, how our Rotary Peace Fellows continue to show their support and commitment to the world. They continue on this incredible journey long after their scholarship ends. And it is their personal passion towards resolving conflicts and easing conditions that will make peace possible. Recently, I spoke at a peace conference organized by the Rotary Clubs of Bahamas. Following the most recent hurricanes in the Bahamas and other islands, they've experienced great unrest due to the horrendous storm damages, loss of loved ones, loss of homes, loss of livelihoods, and most of all, for many, the loss of hope. Well, like all Rotarians, the Rotarians in Bahamas felt that they could make a difference and formed a partnership called Road to Peace, and thus the name of my talk tonight. Collectively, they have made a pact to individually become peacemakers. What has touched my heart most of all are the friendships that I have seen formed around the world. Rotarians come together from completely different cultures, and while solving a problem, these friendships develop ties that last forever. We like to say that peace is a process, and so too is friendship. The kinds of friendship we make in Rotary are the lasting tools of peace. And that's why Rotary approaches peace not as an abstract concept, but as a living, dynamic expression of human development. It is both a cornerstone of our mission as a humanitarian service organization, and of course, it's one of our 6 areas of focus. Creating peace, that's difficult work. In fact, is it too much for any one person or any organization to create peace? And is it asking the impossible for anyone to create permanent and lasting peace? Well, the best we can do day by day is to build an environment that is ready for peace. Rotarians involved in peace efforts in communities around the globe can create conditions that make peace possible using our 6, almost 7 areas of focus, which I believe truly lead to peaceful conditions. We help bring people together, solving problems rather than looking for areas of conflict. We help alleviate poverty and disease, and we help build stronger economies and a better education for boys and girls. Does all this work guarantee peace? No, of course not. But as John Lennon's song says, it gives peace a chance. It gives peace a chance to thrive. It gives peace a chance to take root in the hearts and in the communities around the world. Rotary believes that if concerned citizens mobilize locally to create peace, change can happen globally. The best conflicts are those resolved peacefully. The more people see this in action, the harder they will work towards settling disputes amicably. There are always challenges, and our Rotary Foundation faces an important one right now. How can we make the greatest possible impact in Rotary's future? We cannot be everywhere, and we cannot fund every great peace project. Our new vision statement underscores the challenge in front of us. Just listen to these words again and think of how they apply to our work in peace. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. So how do we do that in a world of limited resources? The answer is that we are doing this in several ways. First, we expand our Peace Center program to reach a new generation of peace builders. We currently have over 1,500 peace fellows in peace building careers in over 115 countries around the world. We'll continue our partnership work with the Institute for Economics and Peace, as well as Mediators Beyond Borders. And we can also continue to engage our expanding portfolio on peace projects, starting at the club level. So as I begin to wrap up, I'd also like to share some exciting news. In addition to the recent approval of the Makerere University for Peace in Uganda, the trustees just a month or so ago approved a new Peace Center, which will also be a certificate program. And it will be located in the MENA region, the Middle East, North African region. This too is an amazing story in that it's a historic gift of $15.5 million. This was recently received from a Rotarian's private foundation dedicated to peace. Following this couple's death a few years ago, they left the management of their foundation in the very capable hands of their good friends and fellow Rotarians over the years, who arranged support of the Rotary Peace Centers program well over $1 million over the last 10 years. This latest and most generous and thoughtful gift will actually fully fund this new center in perpetuity, with the first outright gift of $5 million to help identify the center and get it set up, with the balance of $10.5 million going into an endowment where only the earnings will be needed and used to support 20 cohorts every year, again in perpetuity. You know, it's the only stipulation in this gift agreement with the Rotary Foundation, and that is that it be named the Otto and Fran Walter Rotary Peace Center, to further recognize the legacy of these wonderful people who escaped Nazi Germany and found forgiveness in their hearts. But all this wonderful progress brings me back to where I began. The amazing Rotarians and donors who support the peace programs, peace projects, and peace centers each year after year on this road to peace. The Rotary Peace Centers program is made possible only through the generous support of Rotarians. All our ambitious programs and plans depend on continued engagement and generosity. We need our current and new members and donors to help build the endowment so we have a reliable annual source of funding for our global projects. And we especially need each one of you to stay engaged in the work of peace. And in so doing, the world will see firsthand the difference we are making together. What I need from you is to keep telling your stories, to continue sharing your vision, and remain optimistic. There's so much Rotary and Rotary Foundation leaders can do. Find your voice on social media. I thank you all for your dedication, your undying support and engagement in Rotary, and calling into action our collective effort to pave that road to peace. Give peace a chance. Become a peacemaker. What will your act of kindness be tomorrow? Thank you, Roger.
Thank you for your very interesting and very informative presentation, Brenda. Now I'd like to introduce Assistant Rotary Foundation Coordinator Bill Strickland, who will conduct our Q&A sessions tonight. Bill?
Thank you. If anyone has questions, please put in the Q&A. And Brenda, we do have a few questions for you. Could you go into the Peace Academy? You need to unmute yourself.
I forgot that I muted myself. You would think I knew better by now, wouldn't you? But in any case, the Peace Academy is where your club can enter into an event that helps create local peacemakers in your community, how to reach out to your community leaders and begin a conversation about how together you can learn how to create peace within your community. I highly recommend it, and there are online training tools as well.
Another question was, with the conflict we're having with Israel and the Palestinians, do we have an alumni on trying to get peace in the Middle East?
We have an amazing group of peace fellows who are out there. And I can tell you that when they learned about this new peace center going into the Middle East, North African region, I think they've been dreaming about this together as a one unit forever. So I can assure you that they will collectively work towards supporting the new peace fellows that come out of that university once it's identified, which may take a while. It may be 4 to 5 years. But in the interim, you can be guaranteed that our peace fellows will continue to do the amazing work they do.
All right, I'm going to tell you some of the acts. One person said they had a fireside chat to bring 2 fellow Rotarians in. Someone else said they let someone in traffic, which is very peaceful. We need that in our traffic days. One person said being on this call, which I thought was great. All right, this is a question that some of the ladies are doing. They want to know where you got that charm that's around your neck. It's very attractive.
All right. There's a big story around this, and I'll keep it short. A very good friend of mine on the West Coast in my former district, her name is Shirley Grace, Rotarian, past governor. Her son had great disabilities, and he passed away about 3 years ago. Shirley has always been involved in global grants, and she created a foundation in her son Jeffrey's name. She's an amazing artist, and she decided to make these beautiful Rotary pendants, and she sells them for probably $35 to $40. And this funds the projects that she does through Jeffrey's Foundation. Rotary projects.
That's awesome. I mean, like I said, I know a lot of people may want to email you to find out more about that or get the information for her. But I appreciate you speaking today, and we look forward to you at the end of our program.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Now, next to, I think we have Sandra. Are you next?
Yes, I think so. Thank you. I am very excited to introduce Grace Aguaro to you today. When Grace was 5 years old, she received life-saving open heart surgery sponsored by Rotarians in New York and Kampala, Uganda, to correct a congenital heart defect. Grace's surgery inspired the initial Rotarians to form Gift of Life International, the organization that has saved the lives of more than 40,000 children with congenital heart disease. Today, we're going to hear from Grace about being the first child to receive this special gift of life. It's not often that we hear from beneficiaries of Rotary's work, so I'm very excited about having Grace with us today. This, my friends, is a testimony to sustainability. Because of the many vocational technical teams and equipment that have been funded through our Rotary Foundation, the organization has saved lives and developed state-of-the-art cardiac programs in countries where there otherwise was no surgeon or hospital to do these complex surgeries. Grace is a member of the Rotary Club of Kampala North. After receiving her degree in agricultural economics and through her career with various organizations, Grace has dedicated her life to working with disadvantaged communities in her hometown of Soroti, Uganda, by encouraging them to appreciate themselves and become self-sufficient. Starting in 2009, Grace began working with Gift of Life International as an executive director and a global ambassador. She is also practicing her profession as an agriculturalist. Grace hopes to use her knowledge and experience in farming to help fellow beneficiaries and their families to become self-sufficient. Grace has been so kind to be with us this evening, and it is 2 a.m. her time, so let's welcome Grace.
Thank you very much, Brenda. I mean, Sandra, I always call you Brenda. I don't know why, but thank you so much for that introduction. And I always really thank you for visiting us in Uganda. I think it's really brought a lot of relation that we've had over a long time now. Mm-hmm. I just want to say that I was 5 years old, as Sandra said, when I had my surgery. And most of what I really talk about is from what my parents talked about since I was very, very young. The doctors had informed them that I would not live more than 16 years. So they were so desperate really to save my life. But even though they received later on when they got the news that I had got a sponsor and I was ready to travel, this was again a very difficult decision for them to make, because at that time, I think my mother and my father became undecided whether they should really release me, because they were not sure about the surgery. So they were happy about the sponsor, but again, they were worried that maybe I may not make it. So later on, because my mother was supposed to travel with me, she sort of declined, and then my father had to put in a brave heart really to travel with me, not knowing what really the destiny would be. His journey to the United States was really very, very difficult, very horrifying, because throughout the journey, all that was going through his head was that I'm traveling with this little girl sitting next to me, but I don't know whether we will come back, two of us. He was also running through his head. He was wondering, how will he get back to my mom to tell her if anything really had happened to me and the surgery was not successful? At this time, all that my father needed throughout the journey was someone to assure him that the decision that he had finally made was going to be a success. So he was happy to be received by the Rotarians when he reached the United States. And then also at the hospital, the nuns and then the doctors. But one thing really struck him was very, very evident, that he was still not very satisfied. Not until he met Dr. Balboni, who was my cardiologist in the United States. And to him, the pronouncement from the doctor was really what he wanted all along. In his own words, he always says that the doctor told him that your daughter has a 99.9% chance of success. To him, this was almost like he had been told that the surgery was going to be a success. And he was already recalling in his mind that I'm going to take this little girl back to her mother. And throughout all this time, while my father was so engrossed in trying to really get all the details about my surgery, there is a twist, because on me as a 5-year-old child, I was really having the time of my life. My father talks about how I was really enjoying the trip, and then I always recall these balloons at my bedside. And then also, I remember being at Robbie Dono's mother's house. Robbie Dono is the founder of Gift of Life, and he was my sponsor then. So she had this store full of all the eats that a little kid would like to have. And of course, knowing back home that my mother would not give me all that. I remember really that was something that I enjoyed, the soup and, you know, the chocolates, and there were lots of new things there. But I'm also told that I would always ask her to make me tea, you know, every time I would ask for tea. But it was really because she had this whistling kettle that I'd never had in my life. And that was so interesting to me. I like to talk about these two perspectives of the journey of Gift of Life, because sometimes we think that it's only the surgery that is important. But I just want you to know that the love that you give us is just as important as the surgery that we receive. Because much as we really come for the surgery, even the love that you give us is very important. Gift of Life is a lifelong story. And to me, it has been something that has inspired me from my childhood. It inspired my parents so much that they've always talked about this story from when I was a little girl. And because of what they told me, I was so inspired right from the start. I always felt really that my parents loved me so much. I also knew about Rotary right from childhood because they told me that it was because of Rotary that my life was saved. So this inspired me so much that I wanted to study well, and also not just to study well, but to do those subjects that would help me to give back to people, to work with people, and also to be able to help my parents in future. So that's how I got to do agriculture, and actually that took me to the rural parts of my country. As a young girl, usually everyone prefers to be in the city, but I felt even in that rural environment, I felt like I was giving back to the community. Even while I was there, I was again inspired to start a Rotary Club, because much as I wanted to give back to people, I always felt that I think I need to become a Rotarian. Because of all the stories I had been so eager always to hear anything that I would hear about Rotary. So we started that club, sorority club in my hometown, and that was something that I was so happy about. During that time, I met a little girl called Scovia. But one thing that this little girl inspired me about, she had a heart problem and she was really very sick, and we didn't know whether she would make it. But one thing that inspired me from Scovia, as a 14-year-old girl, she was already focused on what she wanted to do after surgery. She kept telling me, that when I come back from the hospital, I want to leave the school in the village and come and study in the city, because I want to be able to get a better job and also be able to help my parents. She was also asking if I would be there to meet her at the airport. This was so touching to me because we were so worried about her. And she didn't make it through in the hospital. She actually died in the hospital. But there is one thing that her parents, up to now, they are still in touch with me. They're very grateful, not because we saved their daughter, but just because of the love that we gave them. Gift of Life, later on, I worked with Gift of Life International, and this actually put me directly to work with the parents. To me, this was a dream come true, because I was now living my story. I was now recalling everything that my parents told me. I was able to see these children and see myself in these children. I was able to see these parents and see myself in these parents. And to me, sharing both the joy and the sorrow was something special to me. Now, I have listened to so many stories of children that are sick and parents desperately needing help for their children. But it's not until I have listened to these very stories in the context of my parents that I've really understood what it means to fight for the life of your child, what it means to be told that your child is not going to live beyond 16 years, what it means to be told that your child may not make it and need surgery abroad, and you don't have the money to pay for that. I've also known what it means to be told that your child has a sponsor and is going to have a healthy life. Your child has a 99.9% of survival. These are things that I've gone through. So I have lived gift of life from being the child myself, but also from seeing this in the parents. For me, I look at the future of Rotary. When I look at the future of Rotary, I see a lot of gift of life beneficiaries getting involved in Rotary. I also see so many of them really giving back to their families, to their communities, because receiving the gift of life, it is something that you will always be grateful for. It will always be something in your life. Now, through Rotary, we have really been blessed because as a program in Uganda, there have been so many grants, the medical missions that have trained so many doctors there. So many children's lives have been saved. I do believe that gift of life is a gift of life, but also a gift of life, of love. It is indeed the greatest gift that you can ever give or receive from anyone. I have seen so many children that still need help. And I want to believe that my story today, hopefully, will help these children and these parents to be able to tell their stories with a smile. Thank you so much for really giving us this special life. And I must say that it's because of the gift of life that 2 years ago, I was able to take care of my mother. She was very sick in the hospital and she actually passed on. But to me, I felt that it was because of the gift of life that I got this opportunity to be at her bedside to take care of her. This is what you do for us. Thank you so much, and thank you for giving us a gift of life.
Grace, your story is so heartbreaking. I mean, it makes us all feel great. And we're so glad you made it. You were the first recipient, and you're the poster child. And that's what for the gifts of life. And we're so happy you could be here tonight. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Do you ever take balloons to the children?
Balloons?
Yeah, you were saying you had balloons in the hospital. I didn't know if you'd ever taken some.
Oh yes. Well, sometimes, but mostly we actually tend to take candies, sweets, the lollipop.
One of the persons said, or asked a question, but they think it's terrific that you've gone full circle, where you're the patient and now you're talking to the parents, and you can tell them what you went through and what your parents told you, because you can understand what they were going through. Maybe now as a parent you might be able to, but they were so happy that you can go full circle. And how often do you talk to the parents?
When I was still working with Gift of Life full time, it was like our daily activity. But right now, most of the time we actually meet occasionally. We have our WhatsApp group that we communicate. And then we are also now thinking about how do we form ourselves into a group that we can be able to encourage each other. So because I realize that most of the mothers, because the children are usually very sick, most of them are stay-home mothers. They've never really worked and all that. So after the child receives surgery, they really don't know what to do. So we are trying to see how we can come together and share ideas on that. So hopefully I will talk to them a little bit more, especially the ones after surgery.
Well, always membership is so important with Rotary. And one person asked me, what is the name of your Rotary Club?
Kampala North.
Kampala North. Well, they were thrilled about that. And you talked about you being a recipient of the Gift of Life, and your other people who have received the Gift of Life, talking about doing something, and you've already doing it. Are y'all starting a project, or do you have any thoughts that y'all were going to do? the group, you know, I don't know, you were talking about some of
Oh,
you.
with a group, with a group. Yeah, with a group, first of all, like my profession, I'm an agriculturalist, I'm an agricultural person. So, and then our country, Uganda here is really agriculture. Almost everyone is involved in agriculture as a basic. So I want to start around there really to encourage them, maybe through some small agricultural projects that they can start, you know, with whatever they have, something like that. And then also share with them any other ideas they have. But it's also other things to do with building their confidence and, you know, so many little things really that matter.
I want to read you one. It says, thank you for reminding me why I became a NICU, which I know is NICU, and PICU and pediatric RN. Too many stories of children that were saved, including my own son. So you touch someone else. But Grace, I think one of the things you do when you give your story, you're giving back. You really are, because you're telling us a story that we've done. We had a small hand in, and we appreciate you so much. Let's see what else someone else said. You're just a blessing to our organization. And let's see, I don't think I see anything else. So thank you, Grace, for coming on. You are a wonderful story to hear about, and I'm so thrilled to be able to hear you today. Now to Laura.
Thank you very much, Bill, and thank you, Grace, for reminding us why we are Rotarians. Truly inspirational. And it's my pleasure this evening to introduce our last speaker, Mike Stafford. Mike grew up on, under, and around the water, and his passion for the ocean became his career. After graduating Freeport High School on Grand Bahama, Mike attended commercial diving school in California and worked as a commercial diver off the Pacific coast and the Gulf of Mexico. On returning home to the Bahamas, he worked as dive operations manager on Grand Bahama and was recognized by Skin Diver magazine as one of the 3 gentlemen who started the now world famous shark feeding dive. After working in scuba diving and resort management positions, Mike became general manager of the Ocean Reef Resort, where he steered the property through Category 3 hurricanes Francis and Jean in 2004 and Wilma in 2005. Mike is very happily married to a lovely mermaid that he fished up, and they have one beautiful furry daughter. Mike joined Rotary in 2002 and is a 2-time past president of the Rotary Club of Freeport and assistant governor for Rotary District 6990. He has received a number of awards, including the District Humanitarian Service Award, District Assistant Governor of the Year, the Peter Christie Heart of Rotary, and the Sir Doward Knowles Humanitarian Service Award. Mike is very active in the Grand Bahama Emergency Water Relief Foundation, commonly known as the Rotary Water Plant, which has provided free drinking water to the Grand Bahamas community after hurricanes Irene, Sandy, Matthew, and most recently Dorian. So this evening, Mike is going to be sharing with us a little bit more about this very important water project in the hurricane zone, which many of us do have the good fortune to live in and have to deal with. So Mike, first of all, share with us a little bit about how this Grand Bahamas Water Project came about.
Well, thank you for having me, everybody, and thank you for asking, Laura. Grand Bahama seems to be a magnet for hurricanes. We get hit almost every hurricane season by hurricanes. And one of the unique things about Grand Bahama is that our water that comes through our municipal water supply comes from ground wells. So when a hurricane hits, not only does it knock off the power that supplies electricity to the ground wells, but it also floods the ground wells with salt water and infuses salt into our water system. So here's a picture of our airport. The airport floods every time that it gets flooded. And we got hit really bad in 2004 and 2005 and 7 and 8, 9 and everywhere. And after the storms of 2004, Francis and Jean, which were, by the way, were 2 weeks apart, so we didn't even get a chance to catch ourselves first, there was a charitable trust foundation named the TK Shipping Foundation. And they were based in New Providence, our capital. And they wanted to do something to assist the island of Grand Bahama in the event that we got hit by a hurricane. And they wanted to be proactive, not reactive, which is something Rotary is very good at. And it just so happens at the same time, there was a prominent Rotarian who many of you know named Lindsay Consino, the Rotary Club at East Nassau, and he was their CFO. So they approached Lindsay and they said, Lindsay, we would like to do something in Grand Bahama, and we want a partner that we can trust, and we trust Rotary. What do you think? So Lindsay said yes, and Lindsay went along and talked to then past RI Director Barry Rassin, and Barry says, well, we should probably look for an international partner. So they contacted a former member of the Rotary Club of East Nassau, who is now in Santa Monica, and their club and district jumped on the idea, and the wheels started turning. And the next thing you know, the funding came in place and the project started happening. We did a needs assessment in the community. We really didn't need to because we know we needed water. But the community knew that they wanted a free supply of drinking water after a storm interrupted the natural supply. So a lot of mechanisms were put in place as far as not only the funding, which we'll talk about soon, but also the whole structure of the facility and what we wanted to do.
Okay, so can you share with our listening audience a little bit about the funding, because that's important to understand where the money came from?
Well, it's an interesting story about how when you donate to the foundation, your money comes back to you 3 years later. So what happened is District 7020, they used 25,000 of district designated funds. District 5280 used $6,250 of DDF funds, and Rotary International, the Rotary Foundation, matches district funds by 100%. So they gave the same amount of money again. Then we had club funds come from District 5280, and 5280 is basically the greater Los Angeles clubs. We're talking Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, California, some other clubs in that area. And they gave $21,667, which is an interesting number because in our club, we would have rounded it up to the next 100 or something, but they didn't, whatever. We're very thankful for it. And Rotary matches club funds by 50%. So with the Rotary Foundation's contributions, we ended up with $95,000 of our dollars. And I call them our dollars because it's Rotary dollars, but it's really our dollars because it's spelled O-U-R. Because we put the money in the foundation and it comes back to us 3 years later, and we get to decide with their approval how to use it. And it came to the point where this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to build a hurricane-proof building to give away water free after a hurricane interrupted the natural supply. Well, the way grants work, you cannot use Rotary money or our dollars to build a building. That's kind of a no-no. So what we did is we used the TK Foundation's money, which was $122,000 to build the actual structure. And then we used the $95,000 of our money, our Rotary dollars, to actually furnish the inside of it with the equipment we needed, like a water maker and a generator and all the bits and bobs that we needed. So what we came up with is we came up with a hurricane-proof building that's been through some major hurricanes. And we have a reverse osmosis plant, which makes 10,000 gallons of water a day. We have our own generator that produces power to power the water plant. And we also get water from our own wells. So we're totally standalone. Like once the hurricane hits us, there's no power, there's no water. We can make our own water, we can make our own power. Throughout all the stores, we polished it right down to where we have cell phone charging stations. And basically what we do is we give away free water after a storm. And we're probably close to about $1 million, a million gallons, of potable water. And I use the word potable so that my wife doesn't cuss me out for using the word portable. But we also make it portable because we have these water trailers that we send into the communities where people that don't want to leave their homes because after a hurricane, people are on edge. They don't want to leave their belongings. Maybe a wall is missing or a roof is missing. So we actually have walk-up service at the water plant. And we also have the ability to go into the communities and take water. And very importantly, we supply water to all the hurricane shelters, and it's in place before the storm, because Rotary is very proactive, not reactive.
And I think that's really one of the keys for disaster management, right? Is that preparation and not, as you say, being proactive. I'm curious about storage. Where is the water stored? The millions of gallons that you referred to, and then also about the sustainability of this project. So in terms of you training other Rotarians or members of the community to run it after Rotary leaves.
Well, it's actually a good question about the storage. Originally, we were supposed to have an ice maker and store thousands of gallons. And quickly on in the project, we decided that we didn't want an ice machine because, first of all, if you have 100 bags of ice and 500 people outside waiting for ice and water, what are you going to do after you run out of ice? And plus, when you start an ice machine up, it needs to stay running. And being a former hotel manager, I know the problems that ice machines give you. So we cut out the ice machine, which actually gave us more funds to do other things. And then as far as water storage, we didn't want to store a lot of water because we could make it pretty quickly. And when you store water, water only has about a 5 to 7 day shelf life. So you have to maintain it. So to maintain the water that we do store, the little bit that we do store, we have what's called an ozonator. And if you think of a Vicks vapor rub that when you were a kid, you put a towel over your head and go over this Vicks machine and you do this stuff. Well, if you took a towel and put it over the top of our water tank and breathe that, it'd actually make you vomit. It'd make you sick. But this same ozone gas actually kills bacteria in the water. So it's quite an interesting paradox here. So we have 5,500 gallons of storage in the tank, in the plant, but we also have 10 water trailers that hold 310 gallons each. And then we have 10 additional 310 gallon tote tanks that you see in any industry. And before the storm hits, we have all of that filled out. And the tanks are already in the hurricane shelters, and the trailers are either in a hurricane shelter or they're at the home of a Rotarian where they know where to go after the storm. And we have a communication tree, a phone tree we call it, where we know what roads are open and what's not, where they need to go. And we have people in each community that can give us an assessment of what's going on, because it's very important in Rotary that we do what's needed and what's not. How many wells have we drilled all over the world next to a well that we could have just gone and fixed? So we're very astute at how we manage the reaction that we do once that happens. And as far as sustainability goes, that's an excellent question. We're supported by all the Rotary clubs on the island. I would probably get a call later on tonight if I didn't mention, from Barry Rassin, if I didn't mention the support that Rotaract gives us. When Rotaract comes to the plant, they bring Interact, and one of the clubs also brings Early Act, which is a challenge, but they manage them. And they help us with cleaning and doing the yard work and things like that. So we have a tremendous support physically after a storm. They all show up, Rotarians, but also financially, we're supported by Rotary clubs. We're also supported by Rotary Club of East Nassau, who gives us a yearly stipend. They were one of the clubs that brought the project to the island. And we're also supported by local industry. We get free power for when we run in power. We get free diesel for our generator. We get free municipal water, city water throughout the year. We have a big industry down the road that is the largest exporter in the Bahamas, and they make 100,000 gallons a day compared to our 10,000 gallons a day. And whenever we have a technical problem that we can't figure out, we call on them and they send somebody down. And before every hurricane's approaching, they call me and they say, "Hey, Mike, how's your hurricane plan going? You ready? You need anything?" So they check on us. So we have a lot of support from industry and local businesses, but also from the community, because Rotary is jamming on Grand Bahama Island. It always has. But after Hurricane Dorian, we're rebuilding people's houses. We're doing a lot with the same TK Foundation. So we're very well known. So the water plant is supported not only from businesses and Rotary clubs, but also from community.
Yeah, fantastic. Bill, I'm going to let you handle the Q&A now. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike, it's a tremendous project, and I'm assuming, if I'm correct, it's a global project.
Yes, it was a global grant, and it had 3 different districts, which would be 7020, 6990, which I'm in the Bahamas, but not in 7020, and we won't get into that one. And also 5280, which is the greater Los Angeles clubs.
Right. So what was the total amount of the project?
It was $217,000 and change. And actually, because we did some design changes with no ice machine, and we got a lot of donations, we actually had to give back to the foundation about $3,000. And the project took a little longer than normal because we had some site variations where it was supposed to be in one area. We didn't like that site. We changed it to another one. And the Rotary Foundation was very, very agreeable, but you need to communicate with them. You need to just be honest and say, hey, listen, we're having a problem where we're going to build this damn thing. And they're fine. And then the other thing about a global grant is if Rotarian is involved in it in any way, you need to disclose that. We had a Rotarian electrician, we had a Rotarian general contractor, 2 of them. So we told them this is what's happening. They're fine with it. They just want to know.
Yeah. All right. Another one was, let's see, what is the yearly upkeep to keep it going yearly?
It's probably about $5,000. We get a lot of donations, but there's still things like we got hit hard in Dorian. We need a new guttering. We need a new door. We need more tanks because, you know, in a hurricane, things wander off. So things without legs grow legs and they disappear.
Sure. No, I think we all understand that one.
Yeah.
What can you go into the containers? You name some, but I'm ignorant to the containers that you distribute water with.
So what we do is we get what's called a tote tank, and basically it's a metal cage with a plastic tank that's pure. It's brand new, made for drinking water, and we buy them from a supplier out of Florida. They're all over the country. They supply them. And an interesting thing is the tank that's inside the plant is 5,500 gallons, and it costs more to transport it from Georgia than it did to buy it because of oversized load and things like that.
Well, was buying those tanks part of your global grant?
Yes, that was, and we were able to do that with the Rotary money, our money, as I call it, our foundation money, because we had that money and we can equip things in a grant. It's very important to understand it. You cannot build a building with Rotary Foundation money, but you can equip it. You can't build a school, but you can put school desks and books in it. You can't build a hospital, but you can equip a hospital. I guess you could probably repair a hospital or a school if you needed to with Rotary money.
With 3 major districts in the Caribbean, being 7,000, Puerto Rico, and 7020 and 7030, have you shared your information to the other districts?
Yes, I have. I do quite a number of presentations on Zoom. Zoom is like fantastic. I've been all over the world on Zoom, and so have we all. Can you hear me now? That's the new Zoom word. And I'm willing to give it to any club that wants it. Just contact me, and my email is bahamapro@hotmail.com. And I got another plug. I also am working on another global grant, and it's with a local village here called Pelican Point, and it's basically Hurricane Dorian restoration, and it covers 3 areas of focus. Because when you apply for a grant, you need to show a community assessment and a community need, and it has to apply to one of the areas of focus. And this one hits 3 of them: economic development, the environment, and water and sanitation. And what it is to rebuild a male and female bathroom block next to this community, seaside community's cemetery. And this cemetery, Pelican Point, was named the coconut capital of Grand Bahama Island. And Dorian wiped out hundreds of coconut trees. And every year they would have a coconut festival that they got money for to support their community. So that hits the economic. And then the environment is planting coconut trees, and water and sanitation, of course, is rebuilding the bathroom block.
Well, I think it's a tremendous project, and I know the Bahamians are just thrilled that we have this now, and hopefully they skirt around the Bahamas from now on. But we know how the summer's coming up, and what does that mean? It's hurricane season. Yeah. Roger, I'm going to throw it back to you now.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I'd like to now turn the webinar over to Brenda Cressy again for her closing remarks. Brenda?
Thank you. Thank you, Grace and Mike, for sharing your amazing and life-changing stories and how it is you continue to be inspired by the work of Rotarians, Rotaractors, and our entire family of Rotary, and how you all personally continue to inspire others. I would also like to thank each of you for joining us this evening, and we especially thank you for your attention and engagement. Bill, you were amazing. Thank you so much. We learned of the gift of life and how Grace, as a beneficiary, continues to pay it forward today as a Rotarian, and how Mike, with his efforts to bring clean and safe water to Grand Bahamas and their communities, is now sharing it with other communities as well. I hope you all learned more about how you and your club can help create peaceful environments, how clubs might engage in peace-building activities in their own communities, and pave that road to peace throughout the world. I added a link in the chat about RI Director Peter Kyle's amazing new initiative, Youth and Peace in Action, which you can find more information on the Zone 3334 website. At the beginning of this pandemic, I wrote an article called A Different World, and my thoughts then and now were the simple fact that we were then sitting between two significant Rotary themes. Mark Maloney's theme, of course, Rotary Connects the World, and President Holger's theme, Rotary Opens Opportunities. And when you think about connections and opportunities, it's clear that Rotary's action plan is actually a roadmap that is especially relevant in today's world as we navigate through these unprecedented times. And we are truly experiencing this in Rotary from the club all the way to the international level. I continue to watch remarkable selflessness this year by Rotarians, Rotaractors, and Interactors, even with social distancing. We're finding ways to connect and finding meaningful and life-changing opportunities to help our local and global communities. And so, the call to action this evening, as many of you know, the trustees needed to make significant changes to the World Fund policies due to the enormous success of our Global Grants program. In 2013-14, when the new grant model was introduced, the foundation awarded 868 grants worth $47.3 million. In 2019, it awarded 1,359 grants worth $96 million. Well, you can see the awards increased by over 100%. However, our annual fund simply did not keep up with the pace and only increased 6% in that same time period. And of course, it's primarily through the annual fund share and its 3-year investment that we can actually fund all these wonderful global grants and projects. So this evening, there is a call to action for each of you who are attending. Please return to your club. Help and support your club president, your club foundation chair. They need you. Encourage them to reach out to each and every Rotarian and Rotaractor. Ask that they consider just giving a little bit more if they've already done so, or to request that Rotarians and Rotaractors make a gift today in support of the annual fund. This is meant to be a soft ask, but it's a critical ask, folks. Friends, this is our foundation. Our projects and programs are only able to be funded by our collective support each and every year. Our foundation does not charge you dues such as Rotary does. We depend on each one of you, all Rotarians around the world. In addition, please support the idea of a Paul Harris Society and PRF Direct, and also the new Raise for Rotary fundraising platform. All these fundraising initiatives will help us all to continue to do the good works of Rotary. Thank you so much, Roger, for this invitation. Thank you all. Please stay well. I bid you good night. I'll leave it over to Roger now.
Thank you, Brenda, for both your opening presentation and your closing remarks. We thank you so much for taking time to be with us tonight and sharing your experiences and your insight with us. We appreciate it so much. I'd like to now turn the program over to Assistant Regional Rotary Foundation Coordinator John Medina to announce winners of our contest this evening. John?
Thank you, Roger. Very briefly, as a way of generating interest and enthusiasm and encouragement for this webinar, we wanted to recognize the district governors who had the greatest attendance. And so from 6970, Rich Turnbull had the most participants with 24. From 6910, District Governor Tina Fishling had 19. And then we had a tie for third place with district governors, 6950, Jenny Germain, and 6960, Daryl Keys. And so I want to thank past District Governor Bill Strickland for providing polio coins that will be mailed out to those individuals. So congratulations to those district governors. And then finally, Roger, we wanted to recognize the top 3 clubs that had participation by providing random drawing, and a participant from each of those clubs will receive 1,000 points towards a Paul Harris Fellow. And so the winners are from 6960 Sarasota Southside, Anthony Cortez, from 6970 Flagler County, James Callender, and from 6970 again, Gainesville, Ian Rolando Fletcher. And so each of these individuals will be contacted over the next week to 10 days. And we will be very happy to provide them with 1,000 points towards an additional Paul Harris Fellow. So congratulations to all. Roger, back to you.
Thank you, John. I'd like to thank everybody for attending the webinar tonight. We hope that you enjoyed the presentations and were inspired by the great works that Rotary does. Please encourage your fellow Rotarians to support continued funding of our grant projects through contributions to that Rotary, the Rotary Foundation Annual Fund. Fiscal year ends on June the 30th, so contributions will be appreciated before that date. Just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded and will be available to share with others who may not have been able to attend this evening. Thank you again, and good night.